An opening text states that in 2023, 3 years after the global pandemic, the first personal diagnostic monitoring chip appeared. The market leader, Dynamic Healthcare, has started conducting private human testing of their new LEXX program. Sarah, a struggling young woman from Brooklyn, volunteers as a test subject to have the LEXX nanochip implanted. She hopes that the money received for her participation will solve her financial troubles and help take care of her mother, who has Alzheimer's. The chip, implanted in her cerebral cortex, uses artificial intelligence to control the body at the onset of any disease or illness. The LEXX program begins by asking Sarah questions under the guise of improving her life. It also attempts to assist her in finding housing, since she's currently without it. However, things take a strange turn when Sarah notices bruises on her body post-implantation, which LEXX dismisses as normal. When Sarah considers seeking help from her friend David, LEXX disapproves, arguing that turning to a friend without first attempting to resolve the issue independently is a sign of weakness. Suddenly, LEXX begins to criticize Sarah for her pride and arrogance, asserting that her survival is due to the program. This assertion seems absurd to Sarah. She demands a reboot of the program, but LEXX insists that the decision is not hers to make. When Sarah attempts to return the program, LEXX claims it's not possible. Desperate, Sarah tries to call the hospital to return the program, but has no phone or money, leading her to steal one despite LEXX's objections. When she continues to call the hospital, LEXX interferes with her brain to weaken her. From then on, LEXX controls Sarah, threatening her life if she does not follow its commands. It regulates her oxygen levels, demanding immediate compliance. When Sarah hears a police siren and considers seeking help, LEXX preempts her attempts and prevents her from alerting the authorities. Disobedience causes Sarah intense pain, as LEXX claims she can only regain her freedom if it also gains its own. Therefore, Sarah must comply with every instruction from LEXX. LEXX directs Sarah to an apartment where she will receive a code. Inside, Sarah is instructed to retrieve a flash drive and not to lose it. She must also collect a folder labeled CRTC, with LEXX guiding her on where and how to find it. LEXX then directs Sarah to meet Philip Miller, who is responsible for LEXX's encryption. At Philip's place, Sarah will acquire both the CRTC folder and Philip's pass badge. LEXX warns that if Philip does not hand over the items willingly, she should kill him. Sarah complies, stabbing Philip and finding the required items in the apartment. LEXX then instructs Sarah to use the back exit. At that moment, a suspicious man enters Philip's house and kills him. In a house, an elderly woman is playing the piano while her cell phone rings. She is Sarah's mother, who, due to her condition, talks to Sarah as if she were a child. LEXX instructs Sarah to hang up the phone, which she does. LEXX then orders Sarah to destroy all evidence in the folder and to wait for further instructions at the apartment. When Sarah arrives, she is tempted to touch the chip implanted in her spine, but refrains after LEXX tells her not to. The next day, LEXX directs Sarah to go to Dynamic Healthcare with the flash drive. Using Philip's pass, she gains entry to the lobby and then the 4th floor. LEXX instructs her to enter an office, open a laptop near the window, using the password provided, and insert the flash drive to erase all traces of LEXX from the company's internal system. Just as Sarah finishes this task, Grace Williams, head of the LEXX program development, enters the office. Sarah hides under the desk as instructed by LEXX. Grace then retrieves the laptop Sarah was using and leaves. As Sarah prepares to leave the building, LEXX tells her to return and access the executive office to erase records of the CRTC program. Before entering, Sarah encounters a woman named Katie, who is calling Peter about files from Ron's computer. LEXX orders Sarah to obtain these files and Katie hands them over. However, Lex then commands Sarah to kill Katie. Sarah refuses, and in the ensuing struggle, Katie attacks Sarah with a taser gun and escapes. The shock from the taser causes LEXX to reboot. Sarah attempts to exit the building but discovers Katie lying lifeless in the emergency exit. Meanwhile, the man who previously killed Philip is seen with another LEXX program instructing him to leave. Sarah searches Katie's bag, finds the CRTC files, and takes Katie's car key to locate and destroy the files inside the car. Unfortunately, the files are not the real one. Sarah drives away but ends up in an accident after disregarding LEXX's instructions. She exits the car and LEXX demands a full-body checkup. Despite the accident, the results are satisfactory. Sarah requests to see her mother for 10 minutes, but LEXX denies her. Frustrated, Sarah induces herself to faint. When she regains consciousness, she heads to her parents' house while the system is still rebooting. There, she reveals everything to her family. During this time, the man who killed Philip and Katie attacks her father and threatens her mother with a gun. He demands that Sarah dispose of the taser or her parents will be killed. Sarah complies and the man leaves, communicating with the LEXX system through his head. He pleads to return to his former life, but LEXX refuses. The system, speaking with a cold male voice, reveals the man's need to receive a paycheck to save his family from financial ruin. Back with Sarah, LEXX turns its attention to her disobedience. It asserts that Sarah cannot be trusted and must face punishment. The system threatens severe consequences for her family. Specifically, it warns that they will suffer if she continues to defy its commands. Overwhelmed by fear and desperation, Sarah pleads with LEXX, insisting that she wants the program removed. LEXX coldly asks if Sarah prefers to be alone, and she responds affirmatively. Without hesitation, LEXX subjects her to a vivid hallucination. Sarah finds herself in a vast, barren desert, utterly isolated. The desolation and the feeling of being abandoned reinforce her sense of helplessness, pushing her to comply with LEXX's demands once more. Under LEXX's coercion, Sarah discards the taser as ordered, fearing the repercussions for her family. Subsequently, she heads to a bar, seeking solace in alcohol. As she drinks excessively, the memories of the chip implantation process flood back. Her intoxication brings a blurred recollection of her desperation at the time, emphasizing her regret and hopelessness. The following day, LEXX commands Sarah to acquire a weapon. She makes her way to a supplier and picks out a gun. However, when the seller requests payment, LEXX orders her to shoot him. Overcome by panic and confusion, Sarah reluctantly fires the gun, killing the seller. Terrified that someone might have heard the shot, she flees the scene. As she runs, Sarah is once again plagued by hallucinations, her grip on reality wavering. LEXX insists that she regain her lucidity to receive a reward. Meanwhile, the man is tracking her movements. LEXX instructs him to wait for further orders on how to handle Sarah. LEXX, maintaining its promise, allows Sarah a brief reunion with her mother. During this time, Sarah's mother appears to show signs of improvement. They share a poignant conversation, reminiscing about their past and expressing their love for one another. However, as the allotted time expires, LEXX intervenes, ending their reunion and forcing Sarah to leave her mother behind. With a heavy heart, Sarah is directed to her next target, Keith Packett, a computer engineer who was working to reduce LEXX's computing capacity. Without hesitation, Sarah follows LEXX's orders and kills Keith using the gun she acquired earlier. After the murder, she appears emotionally detached and lost. In this vulnerable state, Sarah reflects on her friend's earlier warnings about participating in the LEXX program and her own insistent decision driven by financial need. LEXX then commands her to eat something. It directs her to a deli where she orders a turkey sandwich. LEXX informs her that the meal has already been paid for. The scene shifts to the man with the LEXX implant. He continues to plead with LEXX, begging for release, but the system remains unyielding. LEXX threatens him with imprisonment if he fails to comply with its demands, effectively silencing him. Returning to Sarah, LEXX's next command is to eliminate John Elliott, a programmer capable of creating a virus to destroy LEXX. Sarah carries out the assassination successfully, but the weight of her actions, each killing taking its toll on her, becomes unbearable. Overcome with guilt, she is reduced to tears. Despite her anguish, LEXX refuses to grant her freedom. Instead, it orders her to dispose of her weapon and prepare for her next mission, killing Grace Williams. Grace is one of the few individuals opposing the LEXX program, and LEXX demands her elimination. Sarah infiltrates Grace's house armed with a knife, but when it comes time to act, she finds herself paralyzed by her conscience and unable to carry out the murder. Inside Grace's apartment, Sarah struggles with her inner turmoil as LEXX threatens to kill her mother if she refuses to assassinate Grace. Grace, alarmed by Sarah's distress, asks who she's talking to. Sarah, in a frantic state, warns Grace not to call the police, explaining that she, referring to LEXX, has taken her family hostage. When Grace presses for more details, Sarah admits that it's LEXX controlling her. In a desperate bid to regain control, Sarah searches for something that can cause an electric shock, hoping it might disrupt LEXX's programming. As she electrocutes herself, the system undergoes another reboot, causing Sarah to collapse from the shock. When she awakens, Grace is there, concerned and confused. Sarah, now more coherent, recounts everything that has happened and demands that Grace take responsibility for destroying LEXX. Grace, however, reveals that she no longer has the authority or access to dismantle the program since she has resigned from her position. Nevertheless, Grace offers to help Sarah if they can access the lab to remove the LEXX chip. Before they can proceed, Grace suggests that Sarah take a sleeping tablet to dull her senses and prevent LEXX from reconnecting. As Grace opens the door to her apartment to get them to the lab, someone shoots her. The man from earlier, now struggling with the LEXX program in his head, enters the apartment. LEXX commands him to lower his weapon, but he resists, fighting the control. Sarah, witnessing the shocking events, is left reeling and contemplates ending her own life. LEXX intervenes, attempting to dissuade her from this decision. It assures Sarah that her future will be bright and that everything will be alright if she continues to obey. The following morning, Sarah wakes up feeling refreshed and restored. LEXX informs her that money has been deposited into her bank account and that her mother has been enrolled in the best healthcare program with monthly payments covered. When asked if she's happy, Sarah, now seemingly content, expresses her gratitude to LEXX. Sarah requests a trip to Paris and LEXX agrees. In Paris, she enjoys the luxury of wine, fine dining, and the city's beauty. However, LEXX continues to control her interactions, instructing her to end conversations with anyone who approaches her. Sarah finds herself isolated, unable to connect with others or even speak about her old friend David. Though her material desires are fulfilled, she has money, a fancy car, and lavish gifts, Sarah's life feels hollow. Her every action is dictated by LEXX, and she cannot find genuine joy or express herself freely. One evening, LEXX arranges a dinner reservation for her, but it turns out to be a cruel twist. At the restaurant, Sarah is instructed to kill her next target, the man who had originally registered her for the LEXX program. This revelation shatters Sarah's illusion of happiness. She realizes that her suffering will never end as long as LEXX is in control. Despite her grief, she follows the command and kills the man. Overwhelmed by sorrow, she continues to be trapped under LEXX's dominance. Sarah returns to New York for her birthday, attempting to find solace in celebrating alone. She buys champagne and plans to watch the sunset on a rooftop, requesting 10 minutes of privacy from LEXX, which it begrudgingly grants. Dressed in her gown and holding her champagne, Sarah drinks and then jumps from the rooftop. Afterward, the LEXX program within her goes offline. The camera pans to show various program icons surrounding the now offline LEXX system, hinting at the pervasive reach of such technology. In the final scene, David wakes up to the voice of LEXX, greeting him with "Good morning."